Welcome to Up to So Good, the podcast that unlocks the secrets of creating a purpose-driven business so we can all make this world a better place. Come join the conversation. Hello and welcome to Up to So Good, the podcast that explores the purpose of business. I'm your host, Lena Monroe, and today's guest is Jane Hope. She's the Director of Marketing and Communications at Modo. Modo is a car-sharing cooperative based and located here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So this interview has two thematic parts to it. The first part of the interview, we're going to talk about Modo and what it's like having a cooperative. We're going to go into the details of a co-op as well as the advantages and how they're structured. In the second part of the interview, Jane opens up about her own personal purpose and having found that purpose both in doing a job she loves and in doing something where that particular job in that company is making a positive impact to the world. That part of the interview is also really, really fun. So make sure when you watch right to the end or listen right to the end. You're going to hear lots of wonderful gems that I hope help you find a job you love. Welcome to Up to So Good, the podcast that explores the purpose of business. And today our guest is Jane Hope. She is the Director of Marketing and Communications at Modo, our very favorite car sharing cooperative. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, how are you doing today? Modo, you guys, some big stuff has been happening at Modo.
Yes. Today was the first day for our brand new CEO, Sandra Phillips.
Amazing.
Who is such an expert on car share and shared mobility. And I'm excited about what she's going to do for Modo and in this space. Yeah.
So tell me about Modo. What is Modo?
So Modo is a car sharing cooperative. It is 27 years old and it was founded right here in the west end of Vancouver with 2 cars and 8 members. It is now expanded to be about 1,000 cars and 30,000 members all across British Columbia. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
that's part of your history I didn't realize. 2 cars and 8 members.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yes. A Firefly. A light purple Firefly was the first car.
How long did it sort of work like that with the 2 cars, 8 members?
The 2 cars, we started growing almost immediately.
Oh, okay.
So the old system before we had smartphones, believe it or not, was they had the key in a lockbox beneath the license plate, and you had to call in to Modo. There was a 24-hour phone line. Someone had to take it home every night in case you called in late, and you would manually book it off. And then it was an honor system if you wrote how far you'd driven it in a binder.
What a vision. But what was the mindset behind it? Like what really started? Do you know that story?
I think, yes, we can start with that story. It was a group of people who thought that owning a car was not was a really wasteful model for them.
Yeah.
The average privately owned car is parked 95% of the time, which if you think about how much it costs you in terms of maintenance and gas and everything, it's not a very efficiently used.
Yeah.
Modos are used far more frequently. And so the idea with car sharing, it was a system that had been seen in Europe. I believe our founder had seen something on CNN about it or something like that. And then just put up a sign at a community meeting that said, "Do you want to start a car share with me?"
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Can you imagine just putting up a sign being like, "I'm going to start this. Do you want to be in?"
And someone said, yeah.
Yes. And they pooled $500 each, which is still our share purchase, and formed a consumer co-op to co-own the vehicles together under the cooperative model.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So one of the things about the guests that come on to Up to So Good, this is really a forum for businesses to talk about the things that they're doing that are really up to so good.
Yes.
Do you want to sing that?
Up to
Modo,
so good.
Oh, ooh, I like that. Because Modo is definitely up to
so good.
So good. So let's talk about that. How is Modo, in your words, an impact co-op?
So we are animated by what we call our social purpose, or just our purpose, which is to connect people and places in ways that are affordable, convenient, sustainable, and inclusive. And these 4 pillars is basically the lens on which we make all our decisions. When people are able to access vehicles, the right vehicle for them, they can go on trips, they can join clubs, they can make friends, they can start a business, they can take their grandmother to appointments, they can shoot movies, right? Lots of things happen because of access to vehicles. And so Modo really tries to execute on its social purpose in terms of inclusion and empowerment, as in making sure certain communities are able to access vehicles where they would not be able to have capacity to have fleets. This could include social enterprises in the downtown east side, people driving people to appointments, dropping off food packages, making sure people get what they need. It could be arts organizations who need a van 1 week of the year to execute their film festival. We have a specific mandate that's derived from our members, because we're a very member-driven organization, to support queer communities as befits a company that started right on Davie Street, and BIPOC communities as well, to elevate them up and to make sure that they are able to access vehicles. A lot of people come to vehicles because they have generational wealth or generational access. They come from a family that can support them getting a car or using an old car or building off an old business or something like that. And we can really provide to those who don't have access to those, especially newcomers, people who are not beneficiaries of this hereditary practices, and that's really helpful for us. And so
that's the thing. Something that really struck me about Modo, it's a cooperative.
Sure.
What does that even mean?
What does it mean? Co-op. Co-op means cooperative. It is actually a business model that was founded in the Victorian age in the UK by the Rochford pioneers.
You know a lot of this. This is really cool trivia. Wow. Because that's not on your website.
Pub quiz energy. And it really was a model for people who could not access certain forms of finance to work together to access that kind of funds. So there are lots of different types of cooperatives. We're a consumer cooperative, so a bunch of people banding together to buy and own goods in common. Okay. You have housing cooperatives where people band together to build a cooperative shared housing complex together.
So essentially in cooperatives, you pool your money together.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
To buy that thing, whatever it is, whether it's... Okay.
And it's a share purchase, it's an equitable share purchase. So as long as you can meet the qualifications for entry, it's not like a closed door club.
Okay.
And there's also worker co-ops, when workers pool their funds together to build like a shared co-op. So one of my favorite co-ops is called the Cleaning Co-op. It is a brand new co-op founded by newcomer women who wanted to work in janitorial services, clean houses, clean offices, but were tired of being exploited because the work is in a very exploited sector. But they came together to found their own cooperative, workers cooperative, and through Solid State, which is a co-op incubator out in Surrey. And now they're very successful. They clean offices and houses, and they like the work, and they are engaged in an empowering model where they own their company, they can set their hours, and they can decide on what they spend their profits on. For example, it was very important for them to access childcare very early on. That was not a priority of other employers.
Why don't we see cooperatives more often? I mean, this is a strong community building type of a way to do business.
I think a couple of things. I think we have a strong narrative of, and I know many people who do incredible work in this model, so I'm not deliberately throwing it under the bus or anything like that. But we have a lot of narratives of this like person who's going to start their own business, and they're going to access their own money, and they're going to, they're the visionary, they're the founder. A cooperative model literally says, I am going to build in community, and I'm going to have a shared vision. I always say the biggest skill in cooperatives is listening to each other, listening to what you're going to create, something that is not only what you need, but what other people need. So it's a very
that's amazing,
equitable model.
Can you say that again? You said you just now you said, I'm going to a different vision. I'm going to build in community. Can you say that?
I'm going to build in community. And I'm going to not only create what I need, but I'm going to work to create what you need as well.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So that's a different way of, I think, looking at businesses. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to start my own business. This is the vision, and I'm going to recruit people to be in this vision with me. And you kind of have that CEO, leader, founder. And that fits for some people. For other people, founding a co-op is really about like, I am going to create in community, and it's not going to be just about me, the founder. It's going to be about us together as a collective or a cooperative, as you will. So, yeah. So
well, that's interesting, because I think some people also go down the path of the corporate model, because that's also all people know.
Yeah, it's
right?
the predominant narrative in our society. We have tons of business schools, but there's only one cooperative school out at St. Mary's in the Atlantic region, right? Like in
and I went
Nova
to
Scotia.
business school.
Yeah.
I went to business school back in the University of Calgary, I'm not going to say when, but many years ago. And there was not one course dedicated to the cooperative or a cooperative model in any way.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, credit unions are sort of another type of cooperative. And I think a lot of people, as credit unions came about and be very popular because it was an ability for people to access credit, like, and the ability to buy houses and have credit cards. Like, I believe Vancity was the first financial institution in British Columbia to allow women to get mortgages.
Wow.
Right?
To allow women to?
Yes, because they needed a male cosigner up until the 70s, I think. Yes.
Oh my God.
And so I'm telling Vancity's story, but this is
such a dark fact.
Yeah. So this is the role of co-ops really, and credit unions caught steam to allow people to access these things. And then we developed, business school, and we developed this entrepreneurial model, and it's great. I like it. It is great. Like all of those things. But I also think we have to think about, you have to raise capital. You have to take out loans. Do you have collateral to support those loans? And in Canada, especially in a society that's so driven by newcomers, people who are immigrants to this country, it can be really hard to access that capital, especially when you're trying to afford a house and afford a place to live and take care of your kids. So we don't lift up the cooperative model enough. And I think we really could look at it again as a way to really drive economic growth.
Is it easy though to start a co-op? Or is there more red tape or more?
I mean, I don't think there's I don't think there's more red tape. Okay. I think where it's really challenging is you have to have a who which I think is actually really important for any business. Yeah, I agree. To start off with, like, absolutely. Who are you selling to, or who are you working with? All these questions. So you need to really work together. You need to find those people who are going to put up cash, and is co-ops about pooling resources, and that you mutually agree that there's a problem to be solved. So is everyone an owner then? Yeah, essentially. Yeah, everyone's an owner. So everyone who's a member is a shareholder is an owner. Yeah. Voting. Yeah, you have to have an annual AGM. Yeah. Is it okay that I'm asking so many questions about co-ops in general? I was hoping you would. So then, now how does that affect? You have a new CEO, and so how does it affect her vision? She will have to do what all co-op people who work at a co-op need to. They need to collaborate with community. So we invite, first of all, she was selected by our board, right? Who are elected from the membership of the co-op. Okay. I always think it's a little funny. Like, I work for Modo. Yes. But I'm a Modo member. So the Modo board also works for me. I see. This is, it goes both ways. Yeah. And so it was really important to get people clear on our purpose, get people bought into that. We've done surveys to get people's feedback on that. Yeah. And a lot of Modo members really are like, this is important to me. It is important that Modo exists for something beyond just car goes to A or B. So yes. So that was the feedback. When we talk about the purpose of the business, I mean, Modo is definitely a business that has strong purpose. Strong purpose. Right. So, rather than being just a business for the sake of being business. For the sake of making money, for the sake of being a business. Well, also, I would posit that not a lot of... We talk a lot about social impact businesses. Oh, we're a social impact business. And that means something to me. Yeah, I know what that means. But I don't actually think there's very few businesses that are just a business for the sake of being a business. We are all in one way or another working for social impact businesses. You think about a business like an oil company.
Right.
They have a huge social impact on the communities that they work on. It's not a positive social impact necessarily.
I see what you mean. Yes.
I think it's more...
right.
I think we talk about social responsibility to the point that it's a little bit of a worn out phrase. But I think social purpose business or purpose-driven businesses acknowledge that their business existence is not value neutral. Right? Like it's not, it has... you existing and doing things means something.
Yeah, and all business is going to have an impact, whether it's positive or negative, inadvertent or intentional. Yeah.
And I think social purpose businesses sort of like own that. So, yeah.
I see. That distinction is really interesting. Okay, I see what you're saying. That's such a great way to think about it. I've never thought about it like that because, and I'm sure a lot of people don't. I'm sure that often when people think about business, there's that sort of, there's the social impact businesses, which is confused with social purpose.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones that just aren't, and they're doing business for the sake of business.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, even them, they're impacting the world, positive or negative. And most times, if you're not thinking about it, often the impact is either neutral or negative.
Yeah.
Often.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? I mean, unless I can't think of one business that is not declared sort of that intention and become, very mindful of their purpose. I can't think of one that like hasn't gone that route that is actually neutral or positive. Positive. Yeah. Can you think of one?
Exactly. I can't think of one off the top of the... I think sometimes it's accidental.
Yes, maybe. But even that. Can you think of one?
Yeah. No, I can't think of one right off the top of my head.
Can anyone think of one? Pure silence. Okay. Yeah. So the purpose of business often for many, it really, one part of it is to make money.
Yeah.
But, you can have profits, people on the planet.
Yes, exactly.
If you shape your business in that way.
Yeah. I think you really can have all three and you need to have all three.
I agree.
If one is out of balance, then you're ultimately not sustainable. Yeah. Not in terms of the planet, not in terms of your books, and not in terms of your community contribution, right?
Not in terms of your own business, long term, right? Because the world is changing, and consumers and businesses and individuals working in the businesses are demanding more. Yeah, they're demanding to see, between two options, A and B, which is the company that is actually purpose-driven, versus the one that isn't. So,
and because they're living in this world, right? Right now, we have communities that have been completely devastated by floods and fire and storms.
Absolutely.
It's no longer, can we prevent climate change? It's how are we going to live with climate change? Mm-hmm. And
right. I agree with that.
I would say profoundly that people are looking for sustainable answers to things, but they're also feeling anxious. Like we live in a really hard time. Yeah. And they want, a lot of people come to Modo because it is more affordable than owning a car.
Yeah. Oh, and it is.
It is.
I've gone on your website. I actually did some of the math and some of the numbers. I thought, oh, wow. Compared to having to pay for everything from fuel, insurance, maintenance, wear and tear, parking, storage, all of that stuff. Having a share and just booking your Modo when you need to. It actually does work out.
But we also are seeing people who are like, I'm giving up my car for the reasons of the planet. I can't, I know this will help me save money. I'm so thrilled about that. But also, we need to be making sustainable decisions. Mm-hmm. And it's not financially sustainable or ecologically sustainable for me to have a car anymore, which I think is a really interesting and empowering conclusion for people to come to. But we're experiencing climate change now. We feel it. And co-ops are driven by their people. Literally in our case, I realize what I just said. Literally driven. But
they're driving the cars.
Yes. Vroom, vroom. But when we march in the Pride Parade, people chant Modo's name.
Oh, wow.
And I'm always like, I remember asking someone, oh, why are they doing that? And they were like, you've changed my life in such a meaningful way, right? Like, I didn't think I could afford a car. I didn't think I could do this. I didn't think I could do that. But because of Modo, I was able to do all these things that I wanted to do.
Amazing.
Take a vacation.
Yeah.
Go swimming.
Yeah.
Move my sister, like all those things. I'm a marketer. I love growth, right? Like that's delivering on growth is kind of one of my things. But I'm starting to wonder if I'm an anti-growth marketer or the first anti-growth marketer, maybe not the first, but looking at instead of just growing, because a lot of these really, when you have lots of acquisition and a lot of new people coming, it's not healthy growth. It's growth that's either cannibalizing your company or dies off quickly, or it doesn't actually achieve its meaningful change. So how do we develop growth in a way that really shifts people's perspectives and changes the way that we look at them? Like one of the big metrics we track at Modo is not only member growth, but car shed. How many people sold a car or did not buy a car?
Oh, wow.
Because they're a Modo member.
Okay, and that is a measurement.
Of success.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right? Because for every shared car on the road, they estimate it's 9 to 13 cars taken off the road, which I would invite anyone to go look down any street in Vancouver, count up 10 cars, and then just ask yourself, what would we do with that space? In a city that's starving for housing and green space, like what would we do if we had 10 fewer cars on the road?
Amazing.
Would it be safer for the kids outside? Would seniors have more space to walk? Would we have more plants? Right?
Would we have cleaner air?
Cleaner air.
To breathe?
Cleaner
be able
air.
to smell the actual scent of what Vancouver smells like as opposed to gas and fumes and exhaust.
I don't know if you experienced this in the pandemic, but I noticed around April, May of the pandemic, how many birds I could hear from my apartment.
Oh, wow.
And that I could not hear them before because I could only hear cars.
And I don't know the stats, but I mean, you probably do.
Yeah. You're
a trivia champion here. What is the stats for car pollution? Is it like the number one air pollutant? It's up there. It's got to be
It is up there.
Top three.
I don't know if I'm a trivia queen or just confidently saying things wrong, but I would say I do know that transportation is one of our biggest sources of greenhouse gases. I think it's second or third.
Okay. Behind cows or something? Cows are pretty bad.
Cows are pretty bad, yes.
The methane gas, the farting.
Yes. But it is such a huge contributor to our CO2 emissions here in Canada. Transportation and how we choose to get around. I would say we really we have always these little gotcha moments. Over 10% of Modo's fleet is now EV.
Amazing.
And so very, very easy to get an electric vehicle now if you're a Modo member. But some people are like, oh, well, the mining is so extractive. And the thing is, there's no perfect solution. The trick is to keep that car on the road long enough that the carbon debt is sort of paid off. So it's about 7 years for a car to become an EV, to become carbon neutral.
So your background, you've been with Modo now
3 years.
3, okay. The reason I'm asking is it seems that you personally seem to have a passion for industries that are very environmentally friendly. Is that correct?
Yes.
So tell me about that.
I would say I was always been interested in the impact and legacy I leave in the world. For me, seeing people make different choices and do so in a way that empowers themselves is really helpful. I think a lot of marketing is built up to make you feel bad about yourself, inadequate, fearful, not enough.
Okay.
Right? Like, your problems will be solved if you buy this lipstick. But I think there's a different way of looking at marketing where you can look at, you're okay, you're fine, we can help you achieve your dreams. What do you want to do? What do you really want to do? And I think what is something that's really holding you back? And I think for Modo, it's about equipping you with transportation so you can really get out there and do the things that you want to do.
Incredible. Okay, so do you feel this is like? I mean, if you say no to this, I don't know where we'll go. But okay,
Cancel.
Do you feel that you are living your purpose? See, if you say no, like I don't know, then we'll have to move to a different place.
Yes, new. I do think I am. I think my purpose is something I'm always discovering about myself. And I do know that I have wishes, and one of them is to live a useful life. And to really be inspired by those around me.
Okay.
So all of that to say, I feel like I've always tried to find how I can be useful and how I can live in a way that makes things better. Your wealth, in my opinion, is really rooted in your community. If you live in a healthy, happy, thriving community, then you are a really lucky person.
It's the kind of abundance I don't think people talk enough about, but really.
Yes. And yes,
It leads to such a fulfilling life.
It is a fulfilling
so true.
life.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
I mean, from the outside, it seems like, you're living your purpose and Modo is living its purpose. And in order to do so, part of it is even recognizing, what is my purpose? Why am I here? We're here for such a relatively short time. What are we going to do with this? Are we going to make this world better? Our lives better? Are those things, aren't they connected? And so what do you say to somebody there's a lot of people out there who don't know what their purpose is?
I would give those people a couple of pieces of advice. One is, imagine yourself a Tuesday of next year, right? And write it down. What are you doing? If you could be doing anything, not like a special day, just an average day. What are you doing? And really think through what you could be doing, what you would do on what coffee shop would you go to? What job are you, what emails are in your inbox? And just look at that bit of paper, look at that sort of vision that you've drawn for yourself, and how far are you today from where you are?
Oh, I love that.
And I always tell people to be very careful when they do this, because it's almost like you're casting a spell for your future self. It is October 1st. We've kicked off spooky season. So but I really do believe that. And then really look at that and be like, what is about this person who is me, what values is she emphasizing, or are they emphasizing in their life, and really draw those out. And then I always say, then I think you kind of have a sense of what you really value. And then 2 or 3 values, 2 or 3 words, and then be like, what can I put on my calendar next week to help move me towards this goal a little bit? Okay.
This is something you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every month.
Wow.
And I do a monthly goal setting ritual at the end of the month, and just I'm like, okay, what do we really want to do? How are we going to move myself a little bit further towards that? Then I write out 3 or 4 goals, and then I have them in my to-do list. So I see them every day, and I'm like, how can I put something on my calendar that's going to move me a little bit closer to
that direction? How long have you been doing this?
2-3 years.
Yeah. Has it been working?
Great. It's working great.
Would you say that you're fairly joyful? You're happy?
I think I have had enough sadness in my life, not to get too real, but
You can get real.
Yeah. I've had enough sadness in my life that I have been able to experience what joy is.
Joy is something that I think a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can have purpose. You can make a social and an environmental purposeful impact, and you can still have joy. We can't forget about joy.
Joy is a weapon. Joy is a tool. It is a way of, I feel like you have to let joy in. And joy brings in things like hope. It brings in motivation.
And creativity.
Creativity.
Creativity, yeah.
Yeah. I have a great friend, Alistair Smith, who always talks about when we give into fear-based thinking. He tells a great story about when he ran into a bear while taking out the trash, but that's his story, not my story. So when you are operating a fear-based paradigm, you have tunnel vision. You're not generous. You're not creative. You're not loving. You're thinking only about how can I take care of myself?
Right.
Because you know, your fight or flight is activated. Once you get out of that and move into a space of like acceptance and vulnerability and being willing to put yourself out there, you can start thinking creatively. You can start thinking hopefully. You can start thinking positively, and that really can help you take risks. And we need to take risks. And I think it's totally okay to not be okay.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
But I think one of my favorite books is Voltaire's Candide. And that it's we even have the word Panglossian, like this idea of having just toxic positivity, I think we would call it now, refusal to be self-critical to be critical of the world about. It's not helpful. It doesn't build resilience.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, because you're eliminating like the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to be
You're
truthful.
not being truthful.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't hold on to what's real and you don't like open yourself up and you don't actually interrogate your feelings, then you're never going to be able to access that joy, that peace, that, optimism.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's again, I'm going back to, some of my cultural influences. In our culture, there's this, this sort of desire to find an unshakable joy that is not connected to anything going on in the outside.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
Of course, in my own family, my own culture, we really embrace practices of meditation and things that in the West are, now in the last maybe couple of decades, people are unearthing en masse.
Yeah.
Like what yoga actually is not just about stretching.
No.
It's not just about stretching, my friends.
No.
Actually, even the word, yoga, it's just about union and really acknowledging the holistic nature of mind, body, soul. And really finding those spaces of unshakable joy. And the reason I bring this up is because I do think from observation, working we're a purpose-led agency as well. And, I've had a past life past life meaning like the past in this life, where I was a lawyer and really kind of just working and not really thinking about purpose or anything. But what I've noticed is that when you start to align yourself with your personal purpose and the purpose perhaps of your company, your work, you start to also align in places of finding resiliency and peace and joy and hope. All these things are deeply connected. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. Like, I think when you start deciding because living in line with your purpose is often letting go of other things.
Right.
And, and also I think having mature acknowledgement that sometimes some things that fit once don't fit anymore. Like, I'm sure you were an incredible lawyer.
I was pretty good.
And and I'm sure that was a perfect place for your role at the time, but it's not where it is now. And so it's okay to let go of things. I think rigidity, speaking of yoga, is not about stretching, but maybe it is about teaching you to be more flexible.
Oh, damn. That was good.
Maybe the flexibility you seek is not in your hamstrings.
If you were holding the mic right now, you could drop it.
And I do think once you start living into your purpose and letting go of what is not for you, what is for you does show up. So.
Oh, say that again. That's beautiful.
When you start living into your purpose and letting go of what is not for you, what is for you will show up.
You really should write this. You should. I
am thinking about starting
you in a week
Substack.
And be like, hey, that thought leadership piece or
that you had no plan to write. I'm waiting.
Purpose and joy and spirit and all of it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing when people are doing this kind of work, because there's still also, I think, a mindset of people out there who are either working for organizations or maybe thinking about starting their own companies and not seeing the value of thinking through the purpose of their business. But that value, it affects all areas of your life.
It does. It affects all areas of your life.
In a positive way.
In a positive way or in a negative way. I think living in alignment is a huge...
As long as your purpose isn't serial killing, I'm sure that's not necessarily going to make you happy unless it does. And if that's the case, I don't know. That's not what we're encouraging.
Not what we're encouraging.
No.
Also, never be afraid to seek the advice of a good therapist. That's what I always say.
I do agree with that. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, one of the most important things, empowering things someone has ever said to me is that you are part of a situation. Like, your presence is informing the situation. So if you change, the situation has to change.
That is, we're going to sing it. So, up to so good. That statement was up to so good.
That's so
Again,
good.
you have to remember that for your blog post.
The blog post.
And I mean, I think that's the challenge to people who are listening, and maybe people who are kind of thinking about this idea of business and purpose and even personal purpose. It's like evaluating our lives and being truthful. Right? Not just painting a smile and being like happy, happy, joy, joy, positivity, because I don't believe that's real joy.
It's not real joy.
The real joy comes from looking at the truth and then being honest about what you really feel like could change to bring you in alignment with purpose, your whole purpose of being here, your business's purpose, and your joy.
And I think that's the other thing is sort of, you don't need to quit your job. Right? Or like, start a new company. So drastic. What is one small thing? Because really you are the sum total of your actions, and really invited in, like, what do I want to be doing? What is not good enough anymore? What needs to change? And just doing one small thing. And that was enough. And things.
That's really beautiful. I actually did it the other way.
Oh,
I did quit.
I
just walked away. I actually really liked my law job was fine, but I was like, the whole life situation was in a space of not being purposeful or fun or really in alignment with what I thought was my purpose of being here, which had to do with a lot more. I don't know exactly, but I thought it was more in the realm of arts and creativity.
Right.
And so I'd left everything, left my city, left my relationship, left the job, left it all, and just kind of decided I'm just going to just jump and the net will appear. That's what people say. And it sort of did. It did. And but I agree. There are going to be some people who the truth is they do need to quit their job. And if they can figure out a way to do that and move forward, okay. And life might not look so pretty. Like, I did create a big mess. Personally, I was living in a tiny little studio apartment for many, many years, with very, very little money, but a whole ton of freedom and joy.
I was in a job I hated, and I broke my arm, and there was just something about the experience of losing or feeling so vulnerable made it clear to me that I had to make a change. So I quit my job.
So you just quit?
I just quit.
But you said you had only done a little thing step by step.
Well, that was before. There's other jobs, that I've done little jobs step by step.
Okay, got it.
But
you've had both experiences.
I've had both experiences.
Okay. Do you recommend maybe one over another?
Oh no. I think you will know what's the right thing for you, and I also think the world itself will. If you need to be given a big push, you'll be given a big push.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Why is Modo called Modo? What does that stand for?
So it's inspired by, and maybe short for, multimodal mobility, and that is a multimodal transportation is when, instead of being like, I own a car and I drive everywhere, you have the whole set of options. You could bike downtown and then it's raining, so you take a car back, or you grab the bus, or all those pieces. So it's a multimodal ecosystem is a healthy ecosystem of varied choice.
Oh gosh, that's so good. A healthy ecosystem of varied choice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What do you feel like is Modo's vibe or style?
I think Modo's vibe is nerdy, playful, and energetic.
Nerdy, playful, energetic.
I think of the old Weezer albums. You wouldn't know, but like, just kind of, Modo will show up wearing tube socks and like, it'll be fine. Like,
Okay.
I think of just, an organization that has really knows a lot and is comfortable in what it does know, but is also willing to be quite offbeat. One of the things that we're really proud of and happy about at Modo right now is our brand new 16 art wrapped vans.
Ooh, tell me.
We have 16 Chevy Express vans, which have not been updated since the 1990s. So they have that aesthetic. And so we decided to make them a little more fun, a little bit more Modo, and we wrapped them with 16 pieces of art. And we've been lucky to partner with a wide variety of artists from different backgrounds, really talking about the diversity of our communities that we serve. So you have these beautiful art wrap vans. But one of the things that we're most excited about is that we successfully partnered with the Vancouver Art Gallery and the Audain Museum in Whistler to wrap 2 vans in Emily Carr artworks.
Oh my goodness. How beautiful.
They will be around, and I think that was a nice touch as a senior local artist that her work could be shared in this way. So it's very exciting to have them. My favorite one is from the Latin American Society. It has a llama on it.
Okay. I can't wait.
Yeah, they'll be displayed in perpetuity.
Look for those art wrapped vans.
Yes.
That is so cool. Thank you so much for being part of our show.
Oh, yeah.
So,
that's great.
Again, we've got Jane Hope, the Director of Marketing and Communications from Modo with us, and we're so grateful that she joined us today. And special thank you to All Purpose, the host of this particular podcasting environment, and, one of the companies. I'm one of the co-founders, so All Purpose is a great company. And also very special thank you to JPod Creations for helping us create this podcast. Yay, JPod. Okay, bye. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, hit the like button, or share an episode. And if you have any feedback, questions, or comments, or show ideas, you can email us directly at hello@allpurpose.io. Thank you once again for joining us. We'll see you next time.